Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Data Dialogues. I'm Julien Redmond, General Manager at Certus Insight, and the host for the podcast. I recently had a chance to talk to Alan Loader from Central Queensland Uni and Bryan Thomas from WhereScape about Alan's journey at CQU and how they're using WhereScape to automate their Data Vault 2 data warehouse. The conversation was interesting, and I think you'll find it too. I think it's got some insights for the Data Dialogues audience that could be really valuable. So here's my conversation with Alan and Bryan. Alan, how about we start with you? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at CQU?
Right, yeah. CQU's a dual sector university, so we teach vet and university courses with about 35,000 students across 16 campuses in Australia. So I joined business intelligence team at the uni straight out of university about 14 years ago. We've always been a small team, so I've worked in most of the areas of the BI development life cycle, starting as a report developer, moving into dashboard development and analytics, and now currently I am leading the ETL development here using WhereScape.
Fantastic, that's great. And Bryan, maybe you can introduce WhereScape and yourself.
Oh, sure. My name is Bryan Thomas. I'm a senior solutions architect for WhereScape. So I have been around the block a few times. I started off working on the space shuttle, working on trajectory design packages for that. I built my first data warehouse in the 90s for a large insurance company. It's kind of funny. I work for WhereScape now. I've been working for this for a couple of years. I design, help people go to the cloud with their warehouses or automate their current warehouses. So WhereScape is an automation tool. So we started off in about 20 years ago, and now we have like 800 customers around the world. So
Yeah, great. Well, lots of experience in the room. Maybe I'm the least experienced, but that's okay. I'm asking the questions. So Alan, maybe you can talk a little bit about the project at CQU and maybe what were the original challenges that you're facing that led to the decision to try Data Vault as a methodology.
Mm-hmm. So a bit of history. At CQU in 2016, we changed our student system, which is where probably 80 or 90% of our data within the warehouse comes from. So we also changed the ETL tool we were using at the time as well. So we moved from Data Manager to SSIS. And because it was just really rushed, it was a last minute change. And it was just me doing the work of both maintaining the old warehouse and building the new one. We had several issues. So in 2017, we decided to move away from SSIS and go with WhereScape with the hope of automating much more of the process. So we've got left with, we implemented data stores from WhereScape and some Data Vault, but we ran into issues trying to maintain both. So our build times were getting a bit slow, that sort of thing. So early last year, we decided to move completely to a Data Vault 2.0 methodology. So we're currently in the process of finalizing all the features that we've had available in the old warehouse, which really comes down to we chose Data Vault because the main issue we had is that our sources don't capture history. So it becomes really challenging for us to then try and implement year-on-year analysis of enrollments at a set point in time.
Right.
We also had a few systems that can be unreliable, so they have a habit of changing history. So at least with Data Vault, we can capture that as well.
Yeah. So do you think it was WhereScape led to Data Vault rather than Data Vault led to WhereScape? Is that?
I think it was a bit of both. The manager of the BI team at the time had used Data Vault at a previous employer, so he was familiar with it, and it was more so once we got more familiar with WhereScape, it was a better fit to go fully to Data Vault rather than a bit of both.
Yeah, fair enough. And Brian, is that typical? Do you have, do you see customers coming to Data Vault first and then looking for WhereScape, or the other way around? Or what's kind of the typical reasons you see customers making those choices?
Well, the typical reasons that I'm seeing is Data Vault first. So they go to something like Snowflake or something like that. They're going to the cloud, is a lot of that. And they want to go and modernize more than just their platform, but their schema as well, their design. So they start looking at Data Vault as a way to do that. And then they look and they Google Data Vault vendors, and WhereScape is literally the number one in the Google searches. That's what somebody told me yesterday, and they're like, "There,
Right.
you're the first one to come up."
Perfect. That's good. So, Alan, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you've used WhereScape at CQU for that automation, and maybe some of the advantages you've actually seen by making that taking that direction, I guess?
So I think the main part of automation we gain out of this is using 3D. You basically build the process of how you model a table. So it comes down to, you have a number of templates that you apply to the table that you want to model into a Data Vault. It basically goes through and creates you a logical design for the Data Vault. You run some more rules. It then creates the load, the stage, the Data Vault tables. Then you can choose which database you want to deploy it to, SQL Server, Oracle. Then it's just exported out into Red, and at that point it creates the tables within the database and the stored procedures needed to populate them. They're scheduled within Red then, and they can be set to run overnight. So generally for our standard tables, we can do this in anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. So we get a lot of tables through very quickly.
Yeah.
The main advantages I think we've had is that because we've modeled the process more so than an individual table, we just follow the checklist and we get a very consistent Data Vault design at the end. Everything's gone through the same process. It's gives us a much cleaner outlook at the end. So the design is very consistent across all of our tables. In general, using Data Vault has allowed much easier integration between our different source systems because they all end up in the Data Vault. And because we're only capturing history changes with Data Vault, we're getting much less storage requirements at the end of the day. So we have some of our sources are very much, here's all the data every day.
Yeah, right.
Whether it's changed or not. So
you're getting kind of speed of development. You're getting consistent code, coming through that. And you're getting some efficiencies, I guess, from storage or performance and those sorts of things as well. So, Brian,
yes.
is that the normal WhereScape checklist of things you could expect to achieve if you take on WhereScape to do Data Vault?
Right. Doing Data Vault, I think of it as WhereScape helps tame the Data Vault beast, because the number of tables just grows. Like Alan was saying, you take your source, maybe it's 5 tables. I like to use the example of 5 tables, and employees and orders and customers and orders details, and you take those simple tables and then you create a Data Vault design from it, and you put in your relationships and you mark what are the business keys and hubs and all those things, and then you create a Data Vault from it. Well, that Data Vault could turn into 15 tables when you talk about your hubs, links, and your satellites and everything else. You end up with like 15 tables, which turns into 25 tables once you create your load and stage tables to be able to load that Data Vault. So that's where WhereScape really has the power because we do that for you in a programmatic way in our what we call our model conversion routines that run. They have templates and things that do all that work for you. So you take that mundane part of the job, you automate it, and then you can work on what's important, which is making the business happy and completing their requirements faster. So
Yeah, I know I've had one of my team sort of show me through what gets produced at the end of the process, and there's a lot of stored procedures and a lot of code that you don't have to write by hand anymore. So that's really cool. So, Alan, has it kind of the ability to use automation and speed up the process and get that consistency? Has that changed how you interact with business users and your delivery processes? Has that been a benefit?
Oh, I think the main thing we've gotten out of this is the delivery speed has improved vastly. So we can get through tables quicker in the first place, and because it's just the same process over and over, until you're familiar with the process, you continue to get faster and faster. Once you start gaining that better understanding of how the templates or the model conversions work within 3D.
Yeah.
The other main one we've had is the business users can see a return on the time they've spent with us far sooner.
Yeah.
So we can prototype an initial design really quickly. We can then iterate development on it over and over again until we get something that they're happy with.
So what's a typical time frame for you for kind of starting to touch some data to actually getting a prototype a business user could actually have a look at?
So if we get, say, a report that has 3 tables within 2 days, I would be reasonably comfortable to say, then here it is in a Data Vault format.
That's great. That's great. It's been a lot quicker than it used to be, I'm sure. As far as Brian, kind of team structure and development, delivery practices, and all of those sorts of things, do you see big shifts in your customers as they move to Data Vault and to automation? Is that something that WhereScape sort of notices?
Yeah, what we see is like Alan said, the projects get done a lot faster. So the teams go from they spend a lot less time writing code for those repeatable processes, and they spend more time producing code that actually gives their company that advantage in the marketplace. The biggest change is to Agile Development. So that's what Data Vault gives you. It's designed and written around this methodology. It really is about how you can make changes quickly, reduce the time to implement those business changes. So that's the biggest change to teams is you don't have to do as much of those mundane coding changes, over and over and over again, the same thing. We automate that for you.
I think the team structure changes a bit as well. You kind of, you involve analysts or report writers. If you're getting something that a business user can look at in 2 days, you must be involving some business people then in that process, and so it certainly creates that feedback loop. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It is one of those things where we have had customers that tell us that they sit down and instead of taking and getting requirements from their business and then going off and coding it and coming back a week later and then saying, is this what you meant? They can sit down and prototype live with the customers right there with our tool, saying, is this it? Now, this is the report that comes out of this. Is this what you want? You can do that quickly with our tool.
Yeah. Well, certainly with the improvements in visualization tools as well, BI tools, I think that you can do a lot of that kind of ad hoc stuff as well. So if you've got the data prepared and ready, it just becomes how you're going to look at it. So, Alan, you've been through this journey for quite a while now. What's the set of best practice tips that you might give someone who was embarking on a journey to build a new warehouse?
I would think the main point is if you're using 3D, make sure you spend enough time getting the process right. So once you get the process right in 3D, everything else becomes a bit easier. So you're just deploying the finalized process to the database, As soon as you have a table to load, you run through the same steps you've run every other time. You have a new object within the Data Vault.
And did you guys send people on Data Vault training when you started this journey?
The manager of the BI team at the time went. We didn't, but we had all read through a couple of textbooks and that. But so that's one of our main learnings, would be to make sure that you're upskilling your staff. If you're going to Data Vault, everyone needs to understand a Data Vault. So even if they're not building it, they need to know how to query it. They need to know how to properly reference everything.
Yeah, and I think we have a group of you guys coming early in the new year as well for more training. Yeah, great.
So another thing would be, don't just jump in and start loading data. I think if you spend some time and look towards the future, what other systems do you have to load? So the hub tables are usually your integration points between source systems, so make sure that your keys are correct.
Yeah. I've heard that one quite a few times from lots of different people. It's clearly important. So.
And the other one that I think is really nice is we create satellites on views on all of our satellites that add end dates. So it's just from a business user perspective, makes it so much easier to query.
Okay.
So it might be simple, but they're templated out of 3D. We don't actually do anything. They're just deployed. Yeah. Every time we load a table, they're there automatically, and it's just the easiest feature to use.
Yeah, beautiful. So, Brian, what would be your advice to someone considering this journey?
Well, I would definitely recommend that you take the Data Vault 2.0 certification class. It really is an eye opener for Data Vault. You can read the book, but that book put me to sleep. And I'm a 20-year DBA, and I read DBA books. And so that would be the first thing I would say. And the next thing is, don't be afraid to jump in. Like you said, you can maybe not load your data, especially large amounts, but jump in with our Data Vault Express tool. The 3D part of that really is an agile tool that you can go in and you can play around and try to determine what's the right design for your Data Vault. But like you said, if you get your hubs, if you get your business keys wrong, and that's what hashes are built on and stuff, it's kind of, it takes a lot to recover from that. But as far as playing with it and going and trying to create a Data Vault design, going, well, do I want this to be a link or a transaction, and all these different things that you can just go in, click on a few buttons, change what the attribute type is for that field, and be able to change and say, oh, let's pull these out into a high rate of change satellite, or let's pull it out into a medium rate of change. You can pull your data out. Maybe you have requirements for security or medical data has to be pulled out, personal information. You can pull that out so easy with a click of a button. And I would just say jump in and get started with the modeling tool, our 3D tool, because you'd be surprised at what you can get done in just a few days.
Definitely.
Yeah, and thinking about, I guess, sorry, go on, Alan.
Especially using the visual aspect of 3D, it just makes things so much simpler. Seeing it down on paper just makes things clearer.
So would you guys agree then, maybe if someone's starting on this journey, do a pilot and actually have a play with the tools rather than on paper kind of demos and on paper evaluations?
Definitely.
Exactly.
And especially seeing it in the real world is much different to seeing it in the nice clean data sets you usually have in training.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, dealing with all those curly bits that come through. So, Alan, where do you see the implementation going for you, and how's it going to help CQU going forward?
In the short term, we're going to finish off getting feature parity with our existing warehouse, so moving everything into the new Data Vault 2.0 world. From there, we'll be looking at increasing the number of source systems we're integrating with. So at the moment, we're mostly covering just unit enrollment data. coming from our student system, but we'd like to move to learning, the learning management system, so we can ensure that the students are engaged, getting their work done on a week-to-week basis. We'd like to see network access data added into our area to ensure that our campus facilities are being utilized. And another interesting one that we've got a bit further in the pipeline is we're looking at adding some machine learning models. So currently we have one looking at predicting a student's likelihood to pass based on their history and their cohort. But other things that come up in that area are like looking at an application to determine if that student or potential student will likely enroll with CQU, and if they're going to enroll, are they going to be successful?
Right. So kind of once you've got the foundation in place, being the warehouse, and you're adding in some additional data sets, you can actually then do some analytics that's going to have real meaningful change to the students and and the way the uni runs.
And especially with capturing all the history that the Data Vault does, developing these analytical models is much easier. You've got a much richer environment to train the models on.
Wow, that's cool. That's good. Oh, I mean, anything that helps a student stay enrolled and actually pass their course is obviously a huge benefit, not only to them but to the uni as well. So that's fantastic. Great. Well, look, thanks guys for joining me this morning and having this chat. It's been really good. Well, this afternoon for you, Brian. Thanks for joining later in the day. Very early morning over here, but yeah, look, I really appreciate it, and thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
No worries.